Our AI servers are down, and we only have one developer left that can read code. HELP.
So you're working with AI. You don't have a whole lot of experience building any software. You're just telling AI, I need an application that does this thing. Maybe I need a login and I want to do something specific, right? And it works. You have all this code, you have all these configuration files, you have all this stuff, right? And then you say, okay, tell me how to run this. What do I do next? And then it tells you. So you now have instructions how to run a website for the most part. You might have to ask a few times, figure out the different technologies, where to host it, all these different details that are, beyond a single prompt. So now you've got this application, and it might be one file, it's huge, 2,000 lines of code doing all this stuff. And then you push it to production and you get a user, you get a customer, right? You're excited, you're thrilled to death. You said, wow, I can't believe it, I got a customer. Now this customer says everything's great, using it very minimal. Maybe it's a friend or a family member that's trying it out, checking it out, no complaints. Then you get a couple more users, they start paying you, a decent amount of money, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's $1, maybe it's 50 cents a month. And now there's an issue. So you ask AI, I'm having this problem with my code. And maybe you just give it the file, or maybe you have memory turned on and it knows, and you say, fix this for me, or what's the problem? How can I fix it? Blah, blah, blah. And of course, AI is very generous with its output, and it's going to say, here's the new file you need to use. So you plug that in. Maybe you do some local testing. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't know how. Maybe you just put it straight into production. And then something else is broken. And you say, uh-oh. And you've got other customers, and they're going, hey, this thing's broke. I can't use this anymore. What happened? And now you're back asking those questions to AI, right? It creates you another file, and it fixes that thing, but the other thing's broken again. These are the pitfalls that happen. I've vibe coded a lot of different applications. I've tried a lot of things just to sort of see how it acts, how it lives, how it learns, how the memory works, and how it organizes projects and files and such. And it could work perfectly. The odds are against it, but it can work. It could just do everything it's supposed to do first try. I wouldn't bet on it, though. I'll bet against it all day. I'll bet against that. Now we're just talking about vibe coding, sitting in your bedroom or your office, whatever, just with a laptop, asking AI to write code for you. That's one thing. Let's bring it to the next level. Now you're in an office. You're in an office setting. You work for a company, and you're a developer. Maybe you're a junior developer. Maybe you're a senior developer. Maybe you're a principal developer. Maybe you're a manager. And you say, wow, this AI thing, let's try it out. And you say, okay, my company, we're working on this feature. We have this thing that we're implementing, right? So you say, AI, hey, I need to implement this thing. Well, you can't give the code. Normally, you can't give the code, all the code to AI, because there's issues with, compliance, and you don't want to give away trade secrets in code and things like that, right? So you have to be generic in your asking. So you say, hey, AI, I have this login page or this backend feature, and I need to add, XYZ to it. And it spits out some code, no problem. Like I said, it's super generous with code generation. It'll generate just about anything you want, anything you need. And the next thing you find out, you say, okay, great, it works. Holy cow, that was amazing. That was really fast. I was able to inject some code using Copilot or whatever, you've got this great working piece of software now. And it was fast, and it delivered, and everything's awesome. So you try it again. Now you're feeling good, and you're saying, wow, I can do this. This is really changing the game. The next time it does it, now it breaks something. Okay, let's just hypothetically, let's just say it's not working. So now you're wrestling with this thing, and you just can't figure it out because there's a lot of complexity. Maybe it wrote a whole file or a class or a little system of something that you really didn't look over the details well enough. Maybe some things slid through uh, code review. The PR, we missed it or something. There's just a lot of complex stuff. You didn't really pay attention. You just said, I need this thing. Maybe you know about design patterns. Maybe you know about software principles like solid and whatnot. Maybe you don't. But not knowing how to design software and letting AI write it for you with minimal review, no unit testing, things like that, it can build up to a bad situation. You need to make sure you understand how to write code as a human being before you start using AI, at least as a career option. Don't be a career software developer who completely leans on AI for everything you do. It's not going to work out well. I've done a lot of work with AI and I've seen what it can do, but I'm also very comfortable with architecture, reviews, understanding code, and just making sure that everything is fully tested, everything aligns with the goals of the software, and the patterns exist. You can just as easily prompt, give me this piece of software, or you can say, as a principal software engineer, write this block of code or write this class or design this class that adheres to solid principles and uses well-known design patterns if necessary, and make suggestions. Maybe a state pattern, because I see the word state in the requirements, so maybe this could utilize a state pattern. And if it does or doesn't, pay attention to the prompt and the responses, read the details, because you can have a Socratic conversation with this AI generation and say, okay, you chose, the mediator pattern for this, why? What does that give me over other patterns? Or do I really need a pattern here? Have those discussions, because in the meantime, while you're designing and developing the software, you're also learning how this tool you're using responds to your queries, and it responds to your questions, right? It's like having a coworker. But a lot of people use this as like a junior developer sitting at their desk, and they just say, write unit tests for me, and that's fine. You can do that, and that works really well. Here's the file, write appropriate unit tests, try to catch edge cases, etc., etc. But you can also use it as a colleague. Use it to ask questions. Ask the questions that you would ask somebody if they just rolled into your cube on their chair and said, hey, do you need help with something? And you just start talking to them to say, hey, I'm thinking about implementing this, state design pattern here, or a factory pattern, or, whatever it is, whatever you're thinking through. Maybe you're not thinking patterns at all, because you don't need design patterns to develop good software, but it's a good guideline to get started, and just to understand that specific problems have already been solved with software, so why reinvent the wheel, right? You're not importing a library or anything, but you're designing your own code to be, recognizable. Because if you design something with a state pattern and somebody knows what a state pattern is and they recognize it as soon as they get in there to maintain it, that's a win, because now you've got this communication. It's like seeing a builder seeing a cinder block on a job site. He knows what to do with that block because he's seen it before. That's all this is. So if you want to argue whether solid principles matter or design patterns, you don't need it. It's just a really good tool that most developers can easily understand, maybe spot and code. Sometimes not so easy, but make sure that you align your career goals with you at the center of it. Do not rely on AI to be your entity at work. You need to use that as a colleague or a junior developer. Now, I fear in the future, maybe junior developers are at risk here. Where do the senior developers come from if we eliminate all the junior developer jobs, right? We can't do that. So maybe it's worth looking into having your junior developers use AI, if they want, to do junior developer tasks and keep them on the learning curve instead of trying to replace them with AI. Teach them that they can write code with AI as long as they're doing it knowing what they're doing as far as design patterns and architecture. Teach them software architecture. That's more important moving forward than anything. AI can generate a ton of code really, really fast, and it works. It can work fine. But if you want maintainable code, you want to have something that you can look at and understand later. I mean, think of your future self in 6 months. There's a bug in there. Now I have to learn this code base. Not saying that you wouldn't have to do that anyway, but now you have to look at it with almost new eyes, right? You've never seen it before, at least with old code that I've written that I find and I say, who wrote that? Oh, I wrote that. And then it kind of comes back to me. But if I'm looking at AI generated code that an intern plopped into the code base without a formal review, or not a really keen eye review, or whatever it is, even if it was a good review, the code worked. A lot of companies don't care. Working code is good code, et cetera, whatever. Fact remains, you're looking at code for the first time, or even the developer that developed it is looking at it for the first time with fresh eyes, instead of, oh yeah, I remember writing that. Because there's a difference. It's the difference between reading a paper book and reading an ebook. Just turning those pages, absorbing that knowledge, instead of giving a 5,000 word document to AI, having it summarize something for you to say, this document talks about XYZ. You really didn't learn anything. You learned about what the document says, but you didn't learn a whole lot about what the document was trying to convey as far as a message is concerned. So those are things that we need to keep an eye on as far as the AI world is concerned. Moving forward, let's keep teaching software design to juniors. Let's teach them how to be seniors, because if they just rely on AI exclusively, we're going to have trouble. They're going to have a hard time as seniors. If all their code is coming from AI, they're going to have a very hard time transitioning into senior developers. They're going to be able to do senior developer work very fast. They're not going to be able to maintain it too well. At least that's my opinion. All right. Check out this new book, Effective AI for Software Development. It's going to walk you through some really common design patterns, solid principles, software principles, some stories, and then some ways to use AI effectively. Not just tell AI to do something for you. It's how to leverage knowledge and then leverage AI to help you with that. Use that knowledge, build things, build good things, build strong things. It goes over prompting, iterative prompting. Like I said before, you build me this state machine. Okay, you added a mediator inside that state machine. Why'd you do that? So question it, iterate over a solution. It goes over all that, and enjoy it. I hope to reach out to the junior developers that need to learn some of these things, because I think they're losing out on it. It's a short read. It's not a really long book. I'm not into big textbook like books. I like things to be streamlined. I want to read it, I want to understand it, and I want to get to the point. I don't want to read a 500-page book on how to write prompts or sell something. I want to teach developers how to write software, so junior developers today can turn into effective and very talented senior developers tomorrow.
Thank you so much for watching our video. Please like and subscribe if you found this entertaining.